Hello, third graders. Welcome to your third video about your cursive letters. The last time that we did this, we worked on the letter T. So if you could look at your book for your letter T, and all I want you to do is look for 3 letter T's. Letter T's. This is on the second page in your book. Look for 3 letter T's that you can find something you could fix in, and just circle those mistakes. That's all you need to do is circle 3, 1, 2, 3 mistakes that you are going to fix on your letter T. So take a second and do that. And then we're going to move over to our letter E. So you can pause the video if you need to circle your 3 mistakes on your T's. Then you're going to turn your page over to the letter E. Now, before we get started, I just want to remind you, if you are right-handed, make sure, so if you hold your hand in your pen in your right hand, make sure that your book is tilted correctly so that it is pointing at your belly button. If you are a lefty, make sure that it's pointed the correct direction that way also. So just make sure that your book is tilted how it's supposed to be. If you still aren't sure about that, make sure that you ask your teacher. We are on the letter E here today, so I'm going to show you what the E should look like, and then you'll get a chance to practice. So as you can see over here, we have the letter E. When I do it like this, I'm just tracing. Then I have the letter E over here. This is my cursive letter E, and it goes around just like this. Now, when I do this, you are going to start on the bottom, and you're going to make a line over. So you actually start with that line that's in the E. You're not going to start like you do with the lowercase e, where you kind of go like this. You're actually going to start by doing this center part of the E. So you're going to start by being on the bottom, making your curve go all the way up to that dotted line, bringing it back down, making kind of like a C shape, and then stopping once you touch that bottom line. Notice there are points where we touch the line. So we touch the line here, we touch the line here, and we touch the line here. So make sure that you are having yours touch the line where it should be. Make sure that there is a big enough opening in your E here that we can tell that it's like an E and not, I don't know, an I or some other letter. Okay, so when I draw my E's on this line over here, I'm going to do the same thing. So I start on the bottom, I go up towards the top, and I stop at the curved line, or the dotted line. I make my curve, and I come back down. That one wasn't perfect. It was kind of wide. If you can notice, it was kind of wide. So I'm going to try and make my next one. I'm going slow enough that as I go, I can make some corrections from one to the next. So I'm starting to get it a little bit more narrowed. I'm making sure that I have it slanted also, making sure that it's tilted to the right like it should be. Remember, everything's kind of crooked looking. Not too much tilt, but just enough where we have it slanted like our cursive letters should be. So you're going to fit probably 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, probably about 10 on each row. When you do these, though, make sure, I made a mistake here. I started getting distracted and I didn't pay attention to what I was doing. So I'm going to circle as I make mistakes. I'm going to circle my mistakes. This one was too wide. And as I go, I'm going to make sure that my next one fixes the mistake that I made when I did it. Now that one I was trying to get to the line and now I got too low. So now my next one hopefully will hit right on the line. That one's a little bit closer. Making sure that I'm going slow enough to take my time and do that. So go ahead and pause the video to write your lowercase e's throughout these top 3 lines. So pause the video to do that. Okay, now that we are back at our video after you've filled in all 3 lines. I haven't filled all mine in yet, but now that you've filled in all 3 lines, I want to talk about some common mistakes. So looking at my E's, I think that this one is a pretty good E right here. I think that this one's probably a pretty good E. This one's pretty good. This one's okay. It's not my best one. But when I look down here, I had some that I made some mistakes with. So this E right here, my line went all the way up to the top. It doesn't need to. So I'm going to just circle that to remind myself that it doesn't need to do that. My next one that I made a mistake on is too narrow. So I'm going to circle this E because, and you can tell that on my next one I was like, oh, I need to make that a little bit wider. So you can do that too. As you went, hopefully you were kind of fixing and thinking about what you were doing. On this one, I was pretty close, but it didn't quite touch that line down here. So I'm looking at these very carefully to make sure that my E's are being very neat. And then this one was like straight up and down, so I should have done it more tilted like this. So I'm going to circle that whole thing because I did it more straight up and down. So what I want you to do is look through your E's. I want you to put a star next to your top 5 E's. So I have 3. This one was pretty good. And this one was pretty good. I think those are my best 5. And then I want you to find 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 mistakes that you are going to circle. I actually had more than 5. So if you have more than 5, go ahead and circle those 2 things that you are going to change and make sure that you do when you write your E's again. So pause the video, do 5 stars and at least 5 fixes. Okay, down here, I already had you fix those up there. So if you just draw an arrow on these 3 pointing to what was wrong. So for this one, it was too narrow right there. This one, I'm just going to draw an arrow up and down. This one was too straight. It wasn't crooked. And this one, the problem was that this part did not touch the bottom line. So draw arrows just to point out where the problem was on those. And now we're going to move down to our letters joined to other letters. So we have an E attached to an L. So an undercurved letter to an undercurved letter. So we're going to trace first. So I'm going to trace my E, following it. Again, the trick here is not picking up your pencil the entire time that you trace that letter. So I traced my E. I went all the way to, so I'm going to start over. I traced my E. I traced it to the dotted line, made my loop. Then to my L, I went all the way up to the top, came back down. I touched that bottom line and I stopped. Now I'm going to make my next one right here. So E, lowercase e, up to the L, make my loop, and come back down. That was pretty good. If you have room and you want to, you could do that one twice. So go ahead, pause the video, draw your E attached to your L, and then push play again. Now that you have done your E to your L, our next one is an E attached to an A. So now I'm going to do my E to an A. I have E to A here, so I'm going to trace my E first. So I do it by starting at the bottom. I make my E just the way we have been. Now my A goes up to the top at the dotted line. Then I trace it back down around. I touch where it was up here. I come back down and I make that loop. Now we haven't learned the A yet, so just do your best with that. So I'm going to do my E. Now that I'm at the bottom, I'm going to keep my pen going all the way up to that dotted line again. Trace my line back down for my A. Touch where I ended. Trace that back down and make my curve. Go ahead, pause the video, and do your E attached to your A. Then we have the letter L to the letter E. So we had E to L, now we're going to do L to E. And the L is kind of just like a tall, stretched out E. So to trace my L, I'm going to trace all the way up to that top, come back down to the bottom. For my E, I stop at the dotted line, I make my curve, and then I stop once I make my swoop kind of upward. So now I'm going to make my L, remembering that the L goes all the way up to the top. I have my paper turned still. I went all the way up to the top. My curve got a little wide there. Whoops. I'm going to come back down, L to E. And because I have room, since this got so big, I'm going to try and make my L again, just not so wide. So slanted, up to the top, come back down. There's my L to E, like that. That's much better. This is more narrow over here than it was right there. So there's my L to my E. If you didn't do that with me, you can go ahead and pause your video to do your L to your E. Then we're going to do our G to our E. Now the G is a little tricky, so watch carefully as I trace my G. I start here. You're going to do it like you started your A, where you go up to the top, or not to the top, sorry. You're going to go up to the dotted line, make a little tiny curve, then you trace that back down and you start to make your G. Your G goes all the way to where you ended up here, and then you're going to go down. Now there's a bottom line over here. I'm going to go all the way down to there. Make that part on my G. Now I'm not picking up my pen, so I have to keep drawing my line to connect it to my E, and then I stop right there. So I'm going to do this again over here. Watch carefully. Don't do yours yet. Watch me. For my G, I start at the bottom. Be careful that you're not starting here. This is for the end of the G. This part right here goes down to here. Right here is where we start the G. So I'm going to start here. I'm going to make my G kind of like we did the A. I stop where I ended. I go down at that diagonal, touch the bottom, make my curve, go up to here. Now at this line, I picked up my pen. You will not. But at this line right here is where my G crosses this other line on my G. So I cross, and now I make my E. I have a little bit more room, so I'm going to do it one more time. Watch carefully. I start here. I go to the dotted line, make my curve, my over curve, trace my over curve back down, make it like an A. Now that it's like an A, I'm going to make my line go all the way down, come back up. I'm going to cross at that line and then make an E. Go ahead and do that. When you finish, I'm sure that your teacher will have more directions for you. So great job with your third letter, the letter E. So right now you know how to do an E, you know how to do a T, and then you know how to do an I. And up next, we will be learning how to make an L, which should be pretty simple because we already started that a little bit today. So good luck.